What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports here on the SEC channel at the Voice of College Football, giving you my power rankings for Week 11 of the 2021 college football season as the SEC season continues. It's been a lot of surprises this year. The SEC has not gone exactly like we expected it to. Some major disappointments. I think that those are probably the biggest surprises. And one of them lands in the bottom four, something that I did not expect to say at any point this season. Let's get right to it. Here are your bottom four teams. Vanderbilt's clearly been the worst team in the SEC. Missouri's been right there, just ahead of them, I think. Give Missouri a little bit of credit, though. No starting quarterback, and they still put up a little bit of a fight against Georgia early in the first quarter. Of course, Georgia wound up blowing them away, but there was some fight there from Missouri, so I give them a little bit of credit there. But Florida is the big surprise. Florida at number 12, just not something that I thought we would see this year. It has been a complete disaster for the Gators this season. Firing coaches now. Dan Mullen, is he safe? We'll see. It's just, this team just, it feels like they quit. And South Carolina did not quit. South Carolina played with a lot of intensity, a lot of effort on Saturday night, and South Carolina moves up to number 11 in the power rankings. They've actually got a winning record. South Carolina's 5-4. That's something that I don't think many people expected to have really any chance of happening this season. They weren't very good last year. Had some roster turnover, new head coach, so there really wasn't much expectation for South Carolina, but they've been able to navigate through a pretty easy non-conference schedule early on in the season, and they've got Missouri this week with a chance to get bowl eligible. They'll have Auburn and Clemson after that, which would be two tough games, but if they can beat Missouri, which is doable, you see they're ranked ahead of Missouri here, but if they can do that, Missouri could make it to a bowl game this year, thanks to, again, a pretty easy non-conference schedule outside of Clemson, and then also a win over Vanderbilt, and now the big upset win over Florida. So hats off to South Carolina. They are getting it done so far this year, much better than I think most people expected. They're not quite on that level with Missouri and Vanderbilt, so I would expect them to beat Missouri, but it's 2021. Anything can happen, so I do expect that to be a close game. Moving on to the middle of the pack here, you see LSU at number 10, despite a really good effort against Alabama. They put up a great fight in that game. They still lost, and they have a 4-5 record. Their head coach is now gone, or he's going to be gone at the end of the season, Ed Orgeron. It's just been a big disappointment, and you have to give them a little bit of. It's not all on the coaching staff, in my opinion. They were hit with injuries hard. I mean, you lose two of the top cornerbacks in the country. They've lost their star wide receivers gone. I mean, they've lost a lot of guys, a ton of injuries for LSU, and it just didn't work out for them this year. But you still saw against Alabama that this team does have talent. This program, I think, if they get the right head coach, is going to be just fine. It's just been a rough year this year. Things just really going against them. But they're at number 10. Kentucky at number 9. They've really dropped off since they got off to the hot start. They're trending downwards. Put up a good fight against Tennessee, but Tennessee came away with a win there, and they're up to number 8. Tennessee continues to rise. It's been a slow rise, but they're slowly rising in these power rankings. Remember, they were down there near the bottom at the beginning, all the way up to number 8 now. Mississippi State losing to Arkansas. That's going to drop them down to number 7. Arkansas up to number 6. They are 6-3, and you know that. I don't guess they really have a chance in the SEC anymore, but they have Alabama in a couple of weeks. That'll be a good game, I think. We'll see if Arkansas can prove that and get that big win. You know, they've had some good wins this year. Texas A&M was a great win, but Texas A&M wasn't quite the same team that they are now. But if they could beat Alabama there at the end of the season, that would really give them some momentum heading into next year. So we'll see how Arkansas finishes the year out. They've got LSU coming up this Saturday. That's a big game, I think, for both teams. Arkansas trying to stay in the top half of the SEC West. LSU trying to just save their season. Can LSU get to a bowl game? We talked about a second ago, South Carolina is going to make it to a bowl game. LSU, it's going to be pretty tough. Going to the top 5 now, we go to Auburn and Ole Miss at 4-5. Auburn coming off a tough loss to Texas A&M, but they did just beat Ole Miss a couple of weeks ago. I have to keep them ahead of the Rebels for now. Ole Miss with a big opportunity against Texas A&M. If they could win that game, you're going to see them probably up to number 3 or so in these power rankings. So a big opportunity there for Ole Miss. Auburn, we're going to find out if which is the real Auburn. Which team is the real Auburn team? The team that went on the road and beat Arkansas, or the team that struggled against Texas A&M and against Georgia State? You know, this team has been up and down this year. I think we learned a lot about them against Mississippi State. We're going to find out. If they win that game, they win by a couple of scores, then we know Auburn's a really good team. They just had a bad game against Texas A&M. They lose to Mississippi State, and then you have to kind of circle back and say, well, maybe some of those wins were a little bit of a fluke. Again, we will learn a lot about the Auburn Tigers this Saturday against Mississippi State. At number 3, I've got Alabama. I have dropped Alabama to number 3. Continue to have some major concerns about this team. The talent is there. Like you see at times, Alabama looks like a team that can win a national championship. Bryce Young looks like a Heisman candidate. These playmakers on the outside are making big plays. Defenders can't seem to stay with them. The defense at times is completely dominating. But then other times, this team just doesn't look very good at all. And the offensive line has been a major concern for them. They could not handle the blitzes from LSU on Saturday night. They couldn't run the football at all. That offensive line has been a problem. The run game overall has been a problem. And the defense has been up and down. Like I said, they've looked good at times. They've looked like a championship level defense. And other times they've been giving up big plays and haven't looked all that great. So because of the fact that they've struggled here and the fact that they lost to Texas A&M head-to-head, I'm going to put the Aggies at number 2. Of course, Georgia at number 1. But I've got Texas A&M at number 2. And these are power rankings. These are not based off of resume or head-to-head or anything like that. It's simply how the teams are playing right now. We're ranking the teams based off of now, where they are now. And Texas A&M is a different team than they were when they lost to Mississippi State and Arkansas. I think that this is the second best team in the SEC. I don't think the Alabama win was a fluke. I think if they played again this week, Texas A&M would beat them again. The defense has been really good for A&M. I was really surprised at how they shut down Auburn, holding them just to 3 points. An Auburn offense that had really been hot. That defense was phenomenal. And they're shorthanded, too. They've had some injuries on that side of the ball. Zach Calzada continues to get better. His receivers aren't really helping him out, but they're doing just enough. And this team is able to run the football. The offensive line's getting better. This is a dangerous team. And if somehow they can get to the SEC championship, let's say Auburn upsets Alabama, Texas A&M might give Georgia their toughest test. I think they will give them their toughest test of the season, and that could actually be a really good game. But Georgia's still the number 1 team here. I mentioned how they got off to a slow start against Missouri, but even with a slow start, they still won by a ton of points. The game was not close at all. Defense, best defense in the country. I know some people like to talk about how their offense is not very good. I think their offense is just fine. And when your defense is playing the way they're playing, you don't have to have an elite offense. You just have to have a good, solid offense, and they do. They can run the football. They can throw the football. I mean, they're balanced. They're not scoring 50, 60 points a game and, you know, doing these crazy numbers we've seen in previous years from some of these offenses, but they're still playing pretty good offense when you look at the numbers and you look at this team. They're still blowing teams out. They're scoring, you know, enough points to where games are not close at all thanks to their defense. Georgia's the best team in the country, the best team in the SEC, and they round out our power rankings at number 1. What do you guys think about the SEC? How would you rank these teams? What would you do different from how I ranked them? Give me your thoughts on the SEC and how would you rank the 14 teams down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on our SEC football channel.